on the 66 here. Yank the intake off. You can see a little bit of oily buildup under there. Need to clean it up. But last track day, we came to the consensus that we got a pretty bad vacuum leak somewhere. And we kind of narrowed it down to the intake gaskets here. And as you can see, we're running this factory style intake pan. And we weren't running any gaskets around the ports here. We were just using the pan itself for our seal. And normally that'd be fine, but after some thinking, we realized this block had been milled before it was built, and that intake we hadn't been messed with at all. So we're starting to think the mill of the block and the angle of the heads might be causing a little bit of an intake leak. But I'm gonna pull this intake pan off, try and look and see what our issue is. But we think what's happening is at the bottom of these ports, it's probably pulling the vacuum from the inside of the motor. We also think that might have been what's causing some of our smoke, is it was probably sucking in some oil and burning it. But we yank this off here and see if I can see anything obvious. Our current plan is going to be to run some gaskets around this pan. I found another pan and a set of 4 gaskets, and we'll see if we can make something happen. Got it all off. Tried to clear it. It did have some silicone on it, but got that pretty clean. Laid some shop towels in there, make sure I didn't get anything in the valley there. And I got the old valley pan sitting right here. Obviously it's oily. You can see where some of that residual silicone was. One thing I did notice peeling it off is one side of it was pretty stuck and the other side wasn't. The other thing I noticed, if you look close, you can see the ridges around this port look like they're mostly crushed. But the other side you got to, and you look on the bottom, and it didn't look like it was crushed all the way to me. So I'm still thinking our hypothesis is true, that wasn't completely sealing with that intake. So you're gonna clean that up. But I found another pan here. Garage is kind of a mess, new shop here, but clean this up a little bit. Got some gaskets there. I'll probably run some of this form a gasket aviation sealer around these ports, stick my gaskets down. Got some silicone up there. I'll run my bead across the china walls there. And I'll start getting the new valley pan bolted down and get this intake put back on. Valley pan's cleaned up, ready to go. Gonna use some of this aviation sealer around the ports. Help seal the gasket a little bit better. Stick our gaskets down, get our silicone ready, and then we'll stick the valley pan down, get it all sealed up. trick is filling the entire intake port with this stuff throughout this process. Verifies a really good seal. Mainly using this to help stick the gaskets, help seal with any, not perfectly smooth surfaces and whatnot. All right, black RTV along the China walls, whatever you want to call them. Doesn't need to be a super thick bead here, as this gets completely crushed by that valley tray. Bring you a little closer. Got the aviation stuff around the ports. Doesn't need to be beautiful, just needs to help seal. Ran some silicone along the edges there. I like to run it up the sides a little bit where that gasket seals, just to help verify no oil is going to try and leak there. But I'm going to stick my gaskets down, put a little more silicone just in those corners, and I'll get that valley pan in here and start getting those bolts in. Gaskets, got 4 of them. We're going to try to run one on each side of the valley pan, but sometimes that just doesn't work out. So just have to see if we can get our bolts in with both of them or not. See, got some silicone pushed out around the edges. Tried to center this valley pan as best I can. Get those bolt holes to stay lined up. Everything's pretty good. Got these all lightly snug. I'll go back over them later. But for now, I'll probably use just a little bit more aviation to help stick these gaskets. Stick them in place and set the intake on. Well, both gaskets, I can't seem to figure out how to get both holes to line up. You'll get a whole bolt on one side started, and the other side it's too high up, which I've heard of that being an issue trying to run both. It lifts the intake too high off, and then you're stuck with that. Your holes won't line up. So I'm gonna do what I think Felt Pro recommends. Is that happens, take the top gaskets off, and at least then you still have your bottom gasket helping seal. And so that's probably what I'll do. I'll pull these gaskets off, maybe run a little bit more of that aviation stuff around the ports just to help seal a little bit, and we'll see if we can get that intake to bolt on then. All right, gaskets off. We applied the aviation. I had to put a little extra in here early to try to get that gasket to stick. Still didn't work. Nice thing about this is it always just looks beautiful. Oh, I just love this part. Oh. I am going to put some sealer on these bolts. But for now, I'm just starting them in, see if I can get them started. Well, after struggling for, 26 hours, I cannot get these bolt holes to go in, or bolts to go in. And some people would say, screw the gaskets, run silicone. I really want to make the gaskets work, so what I think I'm going to do is, the problem is it's picking the intake too high off, and it's making the holes not line up. So I think what I'm going to do is just going to oblong these holes just a little bit down. Not enough to make it, sit there and rot 47,000 miles, but just enough to bring this down a little bit, give the bolt enough room to go in at the right angle. The thing I'm trying to really be careful about on this is with these aluminum heads, I don't want to try and cram these bolts in, even if I can force them in, because if you get them crooked at all and cross thread, you're going to take those threads right out. I'm going to try and be quick. I mean, the gasket's all pushed down where it needs to be, so I'm not too worried about the silicone on either end. But, you know, I got to get this done. I got other things to do. WD-40 works good at keeping the bit from getting galled up full of aluminum. Well, we're gonna see here. Might be hard to see, but all of them are oblonged just a little. I didn't go 46 miles, only about 30, so we'll see. Put it in the solvent tank, blew it out a few million times. Just everything we could to make sure there was no aluminum shavings left anywhere. But it's all good. Got it cleaned up, we'll see what happens. Here we go. Just like to mention, intake all back on. We were able to run the gaskets in between the block and the valley plate, but weren't able to run the gaskets in between the valley plate and the intake. It just picked the intake too high up, bolts wouldn't go in straight, and I didn't want a chance accidentally stripping out those intake bolts in the heads. So I just didn't run the top gasket and just put a little bit more of the aviation sealer around the ports just to make sure everything's sealed up good. Got everything tight, got our silicone all where it needs to be, no oil leaks or nothing with it running. That's where we think the problem area was anyway, was in between the inside of the motor and the intake valley. So we're hoping with those inner gaskets, it'll help seal that up, cure a vacuum leak. As I mentioned earlier, we got rid of our PCV valve, so for now I just got another breather stuck in there. We've done that before and haven't had any issues, so we don't think we should have any issue now. It's back together, running good. Hope to take it back to the track, and the goal is 1090s. I think we're gonna do it. But if you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe. Hoping to get more content with this car in the future, along with some of our other projects. Working up to the next racing season. Thanks again for watching. Appreciate it very much.